Well, hello friends, and welcome back. I'm doing another species spotlight here, and this time it's on Mexican sunflower. There's two plants called Mexican sunflower. They're very different, and what I'm talking about here is Tithonia diversifolia. This is a perennial plant. The other Mexican sunflower is, the flowers are more of an orangish color, and it's grown as an annual. It's a real pretty ornamental flowering plant, but it's very important to pick the right one here for your food forest, and that's this one here, Tithonia diversifolia. Because it's a perennial plant, it's much more useful than the annual. This is, in my estimation, the most important support plant in your Central and North Florida food forest. So it's not an edible plant, but this is the plant that you can use to speed up succession and build fertility in your soil. You can also use it because it grows so fast. You can use it to provide shade in spots where you want it to act like a nurse plant and provide some shade for a plant that just needs a little shade while it's young, and eventually it outgrows that. And then also, you're not going to have the shade when you use this for chop and drop, and you cut it. You take your cuttings and drop them on the ground as mulch. That's chop and drop mulching. And the plant grows so fast, and it responds to the cuttings really well. It grows right back even after you cut it like that. You can cut it all the way to the ground, it'll still grow back really fast. As you can see, I have a bunch of them sprinkled throughout my garden. This garden is only 9 months old, so mine aren't as big as they're gonna get. In fact, these have already been used for chop and drop mulch a couple of times this year, even though I just planted them earlier this year. And when I planted these, by the way, just to show you how fast they grow, each one of these was one stick in the ground. Okay, so it was about a 12-inch long stick, generally about the size of this one here, about 12 inches long, with no flowers on it, or no leaves on it. And I just stuck that in the ground about 1/3 of the way in the ground, 2/3 above ground, and just provided a little bit of water, and it grew into, each one of these grew like crazy into this one and this one and all of them. These were all literally one stick in the ground. That's how well you can propagate these plants. That's how well they grow, so it makes it real easy to propagate. So my last round of propagation I did was these smaller ones like this one, and there's another little one. So these little ones I just got started late in the year this year, but by this time next year, all of mine, and I've got about 25 or 30 of them at least, maybe more, all of them are going to be really big, although I'm going to be taking cuttings probably 3 to 4 times per year here in my location in Central Florida. As a support plant, you want as many of these as you can get. I would like to see in my garden, I'd like to see like 5 of these for every fruit tree. And I don't know, I may have 50 fruit trees, so by that math, I probably need 250 of these. I've only got maybe 30. But you know, depending on how much space you have, maybe you can't do 5 per fruit tree. But the more you have, the more mulch you can make, the more rapidly you can get your soil fertility up. So every time you plant one of these somewhere, what you have is a plant that's growing rapidly and pumping a lot of sugar into the soil, into its roots. These tie right in with the arbuscular mycorrhizal network, the same one that's the common one for most fruit trees. And so they tie right into that network. So the network's feeding them some nutrients, but they grow so rapidly and they mine nutrients really well. They get a broad spectrum of nutrients and put them right up into their leaves. And so whenever you cut them back, you can see here where I had cut this previously, there and there and there and there. And so every time you cut them back, you're basically taking those cuttings and dropping them where you need mulch, and you're moving those nutrients that it got from the mycorrhizal network. You're moving those nutrients to your fruit trees when you mulch your fruit trees with this plant. This is the most important support plant, at least in terms of building soil, at least anyway. You can see some soils are really starting to get rich in here, and this has just been repeatedly mulched with chop and drop mulch in these areas. Just in the course of this year. You know, I started planting this garden back in March of this year, 2025. And already, I think a lot of my soils are starting to look like mature forest soil, you know, that might be several years old. So it's all thanks to this plant. This is what made it happen. Tithonia diversifolia, Mexican sunflower. You can propagate it so easily. It grows fast. You use it to build soil. It's not normally propagated by seed. In fact, it's very, very difficult. I've actually tried. And not only have I never been able to get even one seed to germinate on this plant, I've never seen a seed germinate, even in the ground, even coming from flowers. Like, in other words, it does not self-seed readily. I mean, this is a good thing about it because it is a non-native plant, and the fact that the seeds just don't survive is a good thing. That means it's not going to be invasive. It's not going to be a problem. It will sprout. You don't necessarily have to go to the trouble of burying a third of the stick in the ground like I did back here. You can just take a cutting and throw it on the ground. Just let it lay sideways on the ground. And odds are pretty decent that in a couple of weeks you'll see that it's taken root and it's growing. So from that standpoint, they can spread, but that's very easy to prevent and very easy to fix. You know, you just cut the top. If it's just barely getting started, you can just pull it out of the ground, or you can just cut the top off and do that a couple of times and it'll finally stop. You won't be able to take that. So excellent support plant. The best one that I can think of for soil building. Now there are other real important support plants for aspects regarding insects, pest control, pollinators, and there are others that are more important than this one for that kind of stuff. But for soil building and to get a food forest off to a good start, I did another video on the loquat tree. I would say that the first fruit tree and the first support plant for someone wanting to make the next step in gardening and get up to an actual forest with trees and do it with an actual ecosystem forest. The two most important plants are going to be the loquat tree for your fruit and your Mexican sunflower as your support species. Okay, that's it for now. Mexican sunflower, Tithonia diversifolia. Great plant.